Hello, and thanks for taking a moment to watch this video about the valuation notices you've recently received in the mail. I'm Cook County Assessor Bob Thompson. So you've recently received your 2023 valuation notice for taxes payable in 2024. If you notice this at the top, many people mistake this for a 2024 valuation. This is actually an effective valuation date of January 2nd, 2023. You can see down in this box, this is where your 2023 value will be represented. And then it'll also be compared side by side by your 2022 assessment for taxes payable in 2023. That's the valuation that should be showing on the tax statement you've recently received. That's a white piece of paper. It kind of looks similar and has the pay stubs attached to the bottom. If you feel like your valuation may need to be reviewed, or if you're aware of some sales that you think may indicate that your valuation should be reviewed by the assessor's office or your classification, you can give me a call at my office and we can informally go over the information and look at it. If we don't come to an agreement on the valuation and you still dispute the assessor's value, you have the option of attending either one of the local Board of Appeal and Equalization or the County Board of Appeal and Equalization. Those meeting dates and times are at the bottom of the notice there. But again, like I said, if you have an issue, the time to call and question your valuation or classification is right now, and we can likely straighten out any errors or mistakes that may exist prior to those meetings. This is a timeline that reflects your 2023 valuation, and that will be for taxes payable in 2024. We are at step one. You've received your valuation notice. You can see that for the time frame of April through May, it's the local Board of Appeal and Equalization times. This is when the assessor's office and staff is working with taxpayers to review the property information if they feel like there's an error. If we don't come to an agreement, that County Board of Appeal and Equalization is in June. It's on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at the Commissioner's Room. That will be held from 6 to 7 p.m. And you would need to set an appointment with the assessor's office if you plan to attend that meeting. Once that meeting has adjourned, the county no longer can change a valuation other than for like a clerical error that may exist in the assessment. You will then get your truth and taxation notice in November, and there's a meeting in November for public input on the budgets and levies. This is the first estimate you'll get for your taxes payable in 2024, which the tax statement will be sent out in March of 2024. So a general update on the real estate market. We've obviously seen a lot of increasing number of sales over the last couple of years. We had a significant increase from 2020 to 2021 and another high year again in 2022. And the issue that we're seeing now is that the inventory of available homes has steadily declined, and there's really almost nothing left for sale in Cook County. So the number of sales is being held back by that. Currently, there are only 42 active listings as of April 14th, 2023. These are all property types that are listed on the MLS that are not under contract for purchase. So looking at the sales information that we study every year, the median price of a home and cabin in Cook County is up about 11% for the 2023 assessment. The average price of a home or cabin is up about 2% over the 2022 study period. So sales ratios of improved properties. This is for all improved properties in Cook County, residential, seasonal, recreational. We're right around 85% for the 2022 study. This is the 23 assessment, which means that, you know, our assessed value is about 15% below the sale prices at the median. So in mass appraisal, the sale is always compared to the assessed value, and an acceptable range for the median is 90 to 105%. So here's an array of hypothetical sales, and in this array, the median is 84%. But we apply a time trend in an increasing market when the real estate market is showing increases like we've been seeing over the last 2 or 3 years, we do adjust the sales for this time between the when the sale occurred and the assessment date of January 2nd, 2023. So if there's a time trend of say 1%, then you would apply a 1% a month, and it could be 12% over the year. So this is an example of a rapidly increasing market. Our sales ratios, it's an inverted sales ratio study that they compare all of the assessed values to the sale prices and trend that towards the January 2nd, 2023 assessment date. So if you had that 1% per month in appreciating market, sale that occurred in June would get 7 months applied to that sale price of that market increase. So your new adjusted sale price would be $107,000. Now, applying that same 1% to our hypothetical median of 84%, you get a time adjusted ratio of 79%. So the difference here is, with the assessor having to be within 90 to 105%, now rather than just having to go up 6%, we are having to go up 11% or more in this increasing market because of the median ratio is now at 79%. So what's affecting the values and the sale prices? It's a low supply of homes available for sale, and the demand is still high. Oftentimes when a property is listed, if it's listed for a reasonable price, or in some cases not so reasonable price, they are still seeing high demand and multiple offers in Cook County. This is an example of how the sales areas are broken out in Cook County. So each one of these individual colors represents an area or a unique taxing district that we analyze the sales individually. Any one of those unique property or unique colors will be reviewed if they have 6 sales or more, and that's in any category of property that includes commercial, apartments, residential, seasonal, recreational, etc. So this is the Department of Revenue's preliminary ratio run. This is done to analyze the sales that existed or occurred over the last 12 months and compared to the assessment in 2022. And you can see that this is narrowed down to the districts that had 6 types of sales. So you can see that there were only 3 districts that actually were in compliance going into the start of our sales study. For example, Lutzen here, lines 18 through 20. Lutzen is showing 53 sales total, with 44 of those sales being off water and another 9 sales being on water. And you can see the difference between the off water and on water ratio there. The off water properties were much closer to the assessed value than the properties that are on water. So this means that properties on water are going to see a bigger increase than off water properties in order for the assessment to come into compliance. There's additional information here on these studies. The coefficient of dispersion is a measurement of central tendency to see that it's outside of the median, how far are the highs and lows from the median. And typically you want to see that number below 25. Anything lower than 5 could mean that you have some sales chasing going on, which means that the assessor is just setting the assessment at the sale prices that have occurred and not adjusting properties that didn't sell. So the numbers we have for a rural county here are really good. This is all of Cook County residential sales up here, 173 residential seasonal recreational sales with a median ratio at about 83%. So this is the adjustments that some of the townships in Grand Marais saw for the 23 assessment. The residential categories on the bottom, you can see Grand Marais at 13%, Lutzen at 15%, Tofty at about 15%, and Schroeder was a little lower than some of the other townships and districts. I will note that Schroeder last year saw the biggest increase of the West End townships at over 40%. So that might be reflecting here where Lutzen, Tofty probably saw closer to 30, 35% last year. So it's all coming together. Another thing to note that I've put on the rural vacant land increases across Cook County and across all of northern Minnesota. Some of the rural vacant land is seeing an increase in demand, and that caused us to have to increase some of those rural vacant land properties 24%. Not so much in Lutzen, but Lutzen had been getting increases leading up to the 23 assessment as well. So I put together this map of northern Minnesota, kind of breaking out those same categories: rural vacant land, residential seasonal rec, and overall for counties. And I will post this map on the website as well if you want to take a longer look at it. So after making all of our adjustments, this is the median ratios that came out in all of the districts that had over 6 sales for the studied property types. All of those are within compliance. And you can see our coefficient of dispersion on the overall is now under 15, which is actually a really good measurement for a rural county. So I often hear from people that the market is increasing, but they don't believe that it's sustainable. They feel like the market's going to either level out or kind of decrease. And they're worried that these high sales that are occurring over the last couple of years will leave them with an increased assessment or valuation. And this is a graph of the historical assessment of Cook County. You can see going all the way back to 2005, the total county taxable market value was just over $1 billion, 1.14 billion. And currently we're sitting at 2.5 billion. But one thing to note there is that after peaking in 2010, the overall estimated market value of Cook County actually did decline for 7 years in a row. And those declines were the assessor coming into compliance with the 90 to 105% median sale price, median ratio on the sales studies. So I'm going to give an example here that many of you probably realized on your 23 tax bill for the 2022 assessment. The average property in Cook County increased 32% in 2022. And a lot of property owners actually saw a decrease in their taxes if they fell below that 32% valuation increase. So the following slides are just a representation of a small 4-house township. And for example, if they had a $4,000 budget to operate, each property being valued to the exact same, they each pick up a quarter of the $4,000 budget. So what if the budget was cut in half in this township and there was no change to your valuation? If they're all still valued equally, they're all still picking up a quarter of the levy. That would mean that since the levy was cut in half, their tax bill was cut in half. Now, for example, this same 4-house township, if those values are doubled and the operating budget doesn't change, now they're still picking up a quarter of the levy and they're still picking up $1,000 of that operating levy. So you can see here how value changes when they're done in unison are typically not going to result in a tax increase. It's more so based on if the levy changes. So again, if the values are cut in half and the levy still remains at $4,000, they each still pick up a quarter of that levy. Now, this is a more common situation that we see in the market. Waterfront property is valued higher than a non-waterfront property. In this example, I've put it at $200,000 versus the off-water properties at $100,000. Now, with that same $4,000 levy, the higher value property is picking up 40%, while the others are picking up 20% of the levy. So what if the on-water property is increasing at a more rapid pace than the off-water properties? Say you had a 20% increase on lakeshore properties and a 7% increase on non-lakeshore properties. What would the taxes result out of this situation? In fact, the properties that saw a 7% value increase would see about a 4.6% tax decrease with that same $4,000 operating levy and nothing else changing. What's happening here is that some of the tax burden is now shifting to the property that saw a larger valuation increase. So when you analyze the Minnesota property tax system, everything is set up by the state legislature. They create all the laws, they create all of the exemptions and special programs, and they determine who's eligible for exemptions, etc. And the Department of Revenue administers the statutes and makes sure that assessors are in compliance with those statutes. So first step of the process is that the assessor sets the valuation. This is going back to those steps 1, 2, and 3 in the timeline I showed earlier. The assessor sets the valuation classification and sends out a notice for the taxpayer to make sure that they feel that that market value is a representation of what they think they could sell it for, or that the real estate experts in the industry feel like they would get for it on the open market. Also to verify that the classification is consistent with the actual use of the property. Second, the counties, schools, townships, hospitals, every levy authority sets their budget for the following year, and then the auditor estimates what those preliminary budgets, how those would impact the individual taxpayer with an estimate in November. And the taxpayer again has an opportunity to go and put feedback about the levies and the budgets and the spending. So now you've had two opportunities, one for value classification and another for budget and expenses. And then the last step of the process is the auditor finalizes, once those budgets are finalized and approved by boards and counties, townships, schools, hospitals. Now the auditor can divide out the actual levies and apply it to the finalized assessments and send out that property tax statement. The appeals process can start out with just an informal conversation with the assessor or someone in the office, and just kind of discussing, what's going on in the market and how other properties, around them have been adjusted. Some property types are seeing much larger increases than others. And we typically will ask that the taxpayer go and do a little bit of market research, or else, we can also have conversations with them about the information that we have readily available. And if we don't come to an agreement, there are the Board of Appeal and Equalization options. If you're not in an organized township, and also including the city of Grand Marais, there is not a local Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting. Those are handled as open books, which essentially there is no formal meeting. It just means that you are working with the assessor's office by the date of the open book meeting in order to express your concerns with your valuation. And if we don't come to any kind of an agreement at either the local boards or during the open book process, you have the opportunity to present at the County Board of Appeal and Equalization. That happens Tuesday, June 13th in the courthouse in the commissioner's room. That meeting will take place from 6 to 7 p.m. We do ask that you call and make an appointment so that we can all be on the same page and be prepared, and make sure that we couldn't work this thing out with having to attend that meeting. As a note, I will say that last year we had over 550 calls related to valuation or classification concerns, and I believe we had less than 10 attendees in our County Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting that actually attended or made an appointment and showed up or presented information in writing. Also, you can go to tax court. That involves filing a petition with the courts. There's a fee involved with that, and I strongly recommend that you seek out some legal advice and consult with some real estate experts before considering going down this route. But there's more information on the Minnesota Tax Court website if you would like to look into that further. So appeals, you can't appeal the percentage of increase. There's no law in Minnesota that limits how much the assessor can increase a property valuation. We are supposed to value properties at market, and oftentimes we come across properties that are significantly undervalued, and it would be unfair to the other taxpayers to not do our best to value those properties at what we believe they could sell on the open market. You need to really focus on that end result. A lot of times when you start breaking down all of the components of the valuation, you may find a small error here or there, but in the bigger picture, most of the time the errors are on the side that the assessor is undervaluing these properties. That's what we see on the vast majority of the sales, is our assessment is not above the assessed value. It does happen, and we want to find when there is an error or a mistake in an assessment record. So it's important that people are paying attention. If we don't come to an agreement, we ask that you put together information. This would be comparable sales examples, an appraisal, or a broker's price opinion, what they feel like they would list that property on the open market. And at the same time, the assessor's office will do some research and put together information that we would present to the county board or the local board of appeals if we were unable to come to terms with the taxpayer about where we feel that the valuation is at. So if you have any concerns or you want to reach out, feel free to give my office a call at 218-387-3650. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.